Amir lost that power, cause Baba's dead. Hello everyone, Alpha here, and welcome back to some more of the Kite Runner by Khaled Hosseini. And yeah, for today we're gonna be reading chapter 14 and 15 together because they're relatively quite short. By short, I mean 15 pages of length, which is already shorter than what the other chapters are, since they're mostly like 19 or 18. So yeah, we'll just do 2 chapters on this one, and basically what happened, the last one was Baba's now dead, and Amir's like, what happened? Wait, oh yeah, here we go. So yeah, Amir got married to Soraya, was it? Yeah, I think. Okay, so let's just get on with it to chapter 14 then. June 2001. I lowered the phone into the cradle and stared at it for a long time. It wasn't until Aflatun startled me with a bark that I realized how quiet the room had become. Soraya had muted the television. You look pale, Amir, she said from the couch, the same one her parents had given us as a housewarming gift for our first apartment. She had been lying on it with Aflatun's head nestled on her chest, her legs buried under the worn pillows, and she was half watching a PBS special on the plight of wolves in Minnesota, half correcting essays from her summer school class. She'd been teaching at the same school now for 6 years. She sat up, and Aflatun leapt down from the couch. It was the general who had given our cocker spaniel his name, Farsi, for Plato, because he said, if you looked hard enough and long enough into the dog's filmy black eyes, you'd swear he was thinking wise thoughts. There was a silver of fat, just a hint of it, beneath Soraya's chin now. The past 10 years had patted the curves of her lips some, and combed her into her coal black hair a few streaks of cinder gray. But she still had the face of a grand bald princess, with her bird-in-flight eyebrows and nose elegantly curved like a letter from ancient Arabic letters. You look pale, Soraya repeated, placing the stack of papers on the table. I have to go to Pakistan. She stood up now. Pakistan? Rahim Khan is very sick. A fist clenched inside me with those words. Kaka's old business partner? She'd never met Rahim Khan, but I had told her about him. I nodded. Oh, she said. I'm so sorry, Amir. We used to be close, I said. When I was a kid, he was the first grown-up I ever thought of as a friend. I pictured him and Baba drinking tea in Baba's study, then smoking near the window. A sweet briar-scented breeze blowing from the garden and bending the twin columns of smoke. I remember you telling me that, Soraya said. She paused. How long will you be gone? I don't know. He wants to see me. Is it? Yes, it's safe. I'll be alright, Soraya. It was a question she wanted to ask all along. 15 years of marriage had turned us into mind readers. I'm going for a walk. Should I go with you? Nay, I'd rather be alone. I drove to Golden Gate Park and walked along Spreckles Lake on the northern edge of the park. It was a beautiful Sunday afternoon. The sun sparkled on the water where dozens of miniature boats sailed, propelled by a crisp San Francisco breeze. I sat on a park bench, watched a man toss a football to his son, telling him not to sidearm the ball, to throw over the shoulder. I glanced up and saw a pair of kites, red with long blue tails. They floated high above the trees on the west end of the park, over the windmills. Okay, quick commercial break, or should I say interruption. So yeah, in chapter 14, we're already back in chapter 1. Chapter 2 to 13, yeah, everything was just a flashback then. So yes, this is actually where the story continues after chapter 1. I thought about a comment Rahim Khan had made just before we hung up. Maybe it in passing, almost as an afterthought. I closed my eyes and saw him at the other end of the scratchy long-distance line. Saw him with his lips slightly parted, head tilted to one side, and again, something in his bottomless black eyes hinted at an unspoken secret between us. Except now I knew he knew. My suspicions had been right all those years. He knew about the theft, the kite, the money, the watch with the lightning bolt hands. He had always known. Come, there's a way to be good again, Rahim Khan had said on the phone just before hanging up. Said it in passing, almost as an afterthought. A way to be good again. When I came home, Soraya was on the phone with her mother. Won't be long, Madarhan. A week, maybe, 2. Yes, you and Padar can stay with me. 2 years earlier, the general had broken his right hip. He'd had one of his migraines again, and emerging from his room, blurry-eyed and dazed, he had tripped on a loose carpet edge. His scream had brought Khala Jamila running from the kitchen. Sounded like Jurrvih, a broomstick snapping in half, she was always fond of saying, though the doctor had said it was unlikely she'd heard anything of that sort. The general's shattered hip and all of the ensuing complications, the pneumonia, blood poisoning, and the protracted stay at the nursing home, ended Khala Jamila's long-running soliloquies about her own health, and started new ones about the generals. She'd tell anyone who would listen that the doctors had told them his kidneys were failing. But then, they had never seen the Afghan kidneys, have they? She'd say proudly. What I remember most about the general's hospital stay is how Khala Jamila would wait until he fell asleep and then sing to him songs I remember from Kabul, playing on Baba's scratchy old transistor radio. The general's frailty and time had softened things between him and Soraya too. They took walks together, went to lunch on Saturdays, and sometimes the generals had in on some of her classes. He'd sit in the back of the room, dressed in his shiny old gray suit, wooden cane across his lap, smiling. Sometimes he even took notes. That night, Soraya and I lay in bed, her back pressed to my chest, my face buried in her hair. I remembered when we used to lay forehead to forehead, sharing afterglow kisses and whispering until our eyes drifted close. Whispering about tiny curled toes, first smiles, first words, first steps. We still did sometimes, but the whispers were about school, my new book, a giggle over some ridiculous dress at a party. Ridiculous dress at a party. Our lovemaking was still good, at times better than good, but sometimes all I'd feel was a relief to be done with it. To be free to drift away and forget, at least for a while, about the futility of what we'd just done. She'd never said so, but I knew sometimes Soraya felt it too. On those nights, we'd each roll onto our side of the bed and let our own savior take us away. Soraya's asleep, mine was the book. I lay in the dark the night Rahim Khan had cold and traced with my eyes in the parallel silver lines on the wall, made by moonlight pouring in through the blinds. At some point, maybe just before dawn, I drifted to sleep and dreamed of Hassan running in snow, the hem of his green chapan dragging behind him, snow crunching under his black rubber shoes. He was yelling over his shoulder, "For you!" 1,000 times over. A week later, I sat on a window seat aboard a Pakistani International Airlines flight, watching a pair of uniformed airline workers remove the wheel chocks. The plane taxied out of the terminal, and soon we were airborne. Cutting through the clouds, I rested my head against the window, waited in vain for sleep. And there we go, chapter 14. Yeah, so basically, Rahim Khan called, telling him to go to Pakistan to meet him because apparently Rahim Khan has something to tell him before he dies, or yeah, because he's really sick. Who knows? Maybe he's just faking he's sick. We don't know, right? Okay. So let's go to chapter 15 then. 3 hours after my flight landed in Peshawar, I was sitting on shredded upholstery in the back seat of a smoke-filled taxicab. My driver, a chain-smoking, sweaty little man who introduced himself as Gholam, drove nonchalantly and recklessly, averting collisions by the tiniest of margins. All without so much as a pause in the incessant stream of words spewing from his mouth. Terrible? What is happening in your country, Yar? Afghani people and Pakistani, they are like brothers, I tell you. Muslims have to have Muslims so. I tuned them out, switched to a polite nodding mode. I remembered Peshawar pretty well from the few months Baba and I had spent there in 1981. High-walled homes, the bustle of the city blurring past me, reminded me of a busier, more crowded version of the Kabul I knew, particularly of the Koshesh Morga, or Chicken Bazaar, where Hassan and I used to buy chutney-dipped potatoes and cherry water. The streets were clogged with bicycle riders, milling pedestrians, and rickshaws, popping blue smoke, all weaving through a maze of narrow lanes and alleys. Bearded vendors draped in thin blankets sold animal skin lampshades, carpets, embroidered shawls, and copper goods from rows of small, tightly jammed stalls. The city was bursting with sounds. The shouts of vendors rang in my ears, mingled with the blare of Hindi music, the sputtering of rickshaws, and the jingling of bells of horse-drawn carts. Rich scents, both pleasant and not so pleasant, drifted to me through the passenger window. The spicy aroma of pakora and nihari Baba had loved so much blended with the sting of diesel fumes, the stench of rot, garbage, and feces. A little past the red brick buildings of Peshawar University, we entered an area my garrulous driver referred to as Afghan Town. I saw sweet shops and carpet vendors, kebab stalls, kids with dirt-caked hands selling cigarettes, tiny restaurants, maps of Afghanistan painted on their windows, all interlaced with backstreet aid agencies. Many of your brothers in this area, they are opening businesses, but most of them are very poor. He sucked his tongue and sighed away. Anyway, we're getting close now. I thought about the last time I had seen Rahim Khan in 1981. He had come to say goodbye the night Baba and I had fled to Kabul. I remember Baba and him embracing in the foyer, crying softly. When Baba and I arrived in the US, he and Rahim Khan kept in touch. They would speak 4 or 5 times a year, and sometimes Baba would pass me the receiver. The last time I had spoken to Rahim Khan had been shortly after Baba's death. The news had reached Kabul, and he had called. We'd only spoken for a few minutes and lost the connection. The driver pulled up to a narrow building at a busy corner where 2 winding streets intersected. I paid the driver, took my lone suitcase, and walked up to the intricately carved door. The building had wooden balconies with open shutters. From many of them, laundry was hanging to dry in the sun. I walked up the creaky stairs to the 2nd floor, down a dim hallway to the last door on the right, checked the address on the piece of stationery paper in my hand, knocked. Then a thing made of skin and bones pretending to be Rahim Khan opened the door. A creative writing teacher at San Jose State used to say about cliches, avoid them like the plague. Then he'd laugh at his own joke. The class laughed along with him. But I always thought cliches got a bum rap, because often they're dead on. But the aptness of the cliched saying is overshadowed by the nature of saying as a cliche. For example, the elephant in the room, saying, nothing could be more correctly describe the initial moments of my reunion with Rahim Khan. We sat on a wispy mattress set along the wall, across the window overlooking the noisy street below. Sunlight slanted in and cast a triangular wedge of light onto the Afghan rag on the floor. 2 folding chairs rested against one wall, and a small copper samovar sat in the opposite corner. I poured us tea from it. How did you find me? I asked. It's not difficult to find people in America. I bought a map of the US and called up information for cities in North Carolina. He said, it's wonderfully strange to see you as a grown man. I smiled and dropped 3 sugar cubes in my tea. He liked his black and bitter, I remembered. Baba didn't get the chance to tell you, but I got married 15 years ago. The truth was, by then, the cancer in Baba's brain had made him forgetful, negligent. You are married? To whom? Her name is Soraya Wait, wait a minute. Oh, sorry, I messed it up. So, that was Amir talking, sorry. Her name is Soraya Taheri. I thought of her back home, worrying about me. I was glad she wasn't alone. Taheri, whose daughter is that? I told him, his eyes brightened. Oh yes, I remember now. Isn't Gerald Taheri married to Sharif Khan's sister? What was her name? Jamila Khan. But hi, he said, smiling. I knew Sharif Khan in Kabul. Long time ago, he moved to America. Before he moved to America. He's been working for the INS for years, handles a lot of Afghan cases. Hi, he sighed. Do you and Soraya Khan have children? Nay. Oh. He slurped his tea and didn't ask more. Rahim Khan had always been one of the most instinctive people I'd ever met. I told him a lot about Baba, his job, the flea market, and how at the end he died happy. I told him about my schooling, my books, 4 published novels to my credit now. He smiled at this. He said he had never had any doubt. I told him I had written short stories in the leather-bound notebook he'd given me, but he didn't remember the notebook. The conversation inevitably turned to the Taliban. Is it as bad as I hear? I said. Nay, it's worse, much worse, he said. They don't let you be human. He pointed to a scar above his right eye, cutting a crooked path through his bushy eyebrow. I was at a soccer game in Ghazi Stadium in 1998. Kabul against Mazari Sharif, I think. And by the way, the players weren't allowed to wear shorts. Indecent exposure, I guess. He gave the tired laugh. Anyway, Kabul scored a goal, and the man next to me cheered loudly. Suddenly, this young bearded fellow who was patrolling the aisles, 18 years old, at most by the look of him, he walked up to me and struck me on the forehead with the butt of his Kalashnikov. "Do that again? Do that again and I'll cut out your tongue, you old donkey," he said. Rahim Khan rubbed the scar with a gnarled finger. I was old enough to be his grandfather, and I was sitting there, blood gushing down my face, apologizing to that son of a dog. I poured him more tea. Rahim Khan talked some more. Much of it I knew already, some not. He told me that, as arranged between Baba and him, he had lived in Baba's house since 1981. This I knew about. Baba had sold the house to Rahim Khan shortly before he and I fled Kabul. The way Baba had seen it those days, Afghanistan's troubles were only a temporary interruption of our way of life. The days of parties at the Wazir Akbar Khan house and picnics in Pagman would surely return. So he'd given the house to Rahim Khan to keep watch over until that day. Rahim Khan told me how, when the Northern Alliance took over Kabul between 1992 and 1996, different factions claimed different parts of Kabul. If you were from the Shah-e-Nuh section to Kirte Parwan to buy a carpet, you risk getting shot by a sniper or getting blown up by a rocket. If you passed all the checkpoints at once, you practically needed a visa to go from one neighborhood to the other. So people just stayed put, prayed the next rocket wouldn't hit their home. He told me how people knocked holes in the walls of their homes so they could bypass the dangerous streets and would move down the block from hole to hole. In other parts, people moved about it in underground tunnels. "Why didn't you leave?" I said. "Kabul was my home. It still is," he snickered. "Remember the street that went from your house to the Kishla, the military barracks next to Istishal school?" "Yes." It was a shortcut to the school. I remember the day Hassan and I crossed it, and the soldiers had teased Hassan about his mother. Hassan had cried in the cinema later, and I put an arm around him. "When the Taliban rolled in and kicked the alliance out of Kabul, I actually danced on that street," Rahim Khan said. "And believe me, I wasn't alone. People were celebrating at Chaman, at Des Mazang, greeting the Taliban in the streets, climbing their tanks and posing for pictures with them. People were so tired of the constant fighting, tired of the rockets, the gunfire, the explosions, tired of watching Gulbuddin and his cohorts firing on anything that moved. The alliance did more damage to Kabul than the Sohrawi. They destroyed your father's orphanage. Did you know that?" "Why?" I said. "Why would they destroy an orphanage?" I remembered sitting behind Baba the day they opened the orphanage. The wind had knocked off his karakul hat, and everyone had laughed, then stood and clapped when he delivered his speech. And now it was just another pile of rubble. All the money Baba had spent, all those nights he'd sweated over the blueprints, all the visits to the construction site to make sure every brick, every beam, and every block was laid just right. "Collateral damage," Rahim Khan said. "You don't want to know, Amir Khan, what it was like sifting through the rubble of that orphanage. There were body parts of children. So when the Taliban came, they were heroes," Rahim Khan said. "Peace at last." Yes, hope is a strange thing, peace at last. But at what price? A violent coughing fit gripped Rahim Khan and rocked his gaunt body back and forth. When he spat into his handkerchief, it immediately strained red. I thought that was a good time, as good a time as any to address the elephant sweating with us in the tiny room. "How are you?" I asked. "I mean, really, how are you?" "Dying, actually," he said in a gurgling voice. Another round of coughing, more blood on the handkerchief. He wiped his mouth, blotted his sweaty brow from one wasted temple to the other with his sleeve, and gave me a quick glance. When he nodded, I knew he had read the next question on my face. "Not long," he breathed. "How long?" He shrugged, coughed again. "I don't think I'll see the end of this summer," he said. "Let me take you home with me. I can find you a good doctor. They're coming up with new treatments all the time. There are new drugs and experimental treatments. We could enroll you in one." I was rambling and I knew it, but it was better than crying, which I was probably going to do anyways. He let out a chuff of laughter. I revealed missing lower incisors. It was the most tired laughter I have ever heard. "I see America has infused you with the optimism that has made her so great. That's very good. We're a melancholic people. We Afghans, aren't we? Often we wallow too much in gamkori and self-pity. We give in to loss, suffering, and accept it as a fact of life, even see it as necessary. Zindagi migzara, we say. Life goes on, but I am not surrendering to fate here. I am being pragmatic. I have seen several good doctors here, and they have given the same answer. I trust them and believe them. There is such thing as God's will. There's only what you do and what you don't do, I said. Rahim Khan laughed. You sounded like your father just now. I miss him so much, but it is God's will, Amir Khan. It really is. He paused. Besides, there's another reason I asked you to come here. I wanted to see you before I go, yes, but something else too. Anything. You know all those years I lived in your father's house after you left? Yes. I wasn't alone for all of them. Hassan lived there with me. Hassan? I said. When was the last time I had spoken his name? Those thorny old barbs of guilt born to me once more, as if speaking his name had broken a spell, set them free to torment me anew. Suddenly the air in Rahim Khan's little flat was too thick, too hot, too rich with the smell of the street. I thought about writing you and telling you before, but I wasn't sure you wanted to know. Was I wrong? The truth was no, the lie was yes. I settled for something in between. I don't know. He coughed another patch of blood into the handkerchief. When he bent his head to spit, I saw honey-crusted sores on his scalp. I brought you here because I am going to ask you something of you. I'm going to ask you to do something for me. But before I do, I want to tell you about Hassan. Do you understand? Yes, I murmured. I want to tell you about him. I want to tell you everything. You will listen. I nodded. Then Rahim Khan sipped some more of tea, rested his head against the wall, and spoke. And yeah, I think we should end it here. Not really sure how many minutes this video, this part has been. But yeah, chapter 16 seems long enough to be a standout on its own. So yeah, I'll see you guys on the next one. And wait, let's do a quick summary. Yeah, wait. So yeah, basically Rahim Khan called. Amir got the phone. Then he went to Pakistan to meet Rahim Khan. Rahim Khan is dying. And Rahim Khan is going to tell him all about Hassan. Okay, the end. Bye.